So thank you for being receptive and having me here today. I'm Tracy Shannon. My pronouns are biological sex is real, and I identify as a mad mama bear. So, and why am I a mad mama bear? It's because all of these dirty books in our classrooms and in our school libraries. Because when you send your kid to school, you do not expect that they're going to encounter material that includes how to perform all kinds of kinky sex, or how to self-pleasure yourself either manually or with a sex toy. And that's the kind of things that we're finding in the districts, and sexually explicit content. One of the main things I found when I was looking last night at the middle school and high school level, this one was found at the high school level, is transsexual propaganda. This is the Trans Teen Survival Guide, and it's available at Granbury High School. And here's what's in it. It advises girls to use breast binders. These actually cause permanent damage to your lungs and your ribs. And can cause girls to pass out. So this is, and cause lifelong problems. So they also say in the book that accessing puberty blockers is vital. So in other words, you just may die if you can't block your natural puberty. It suggests hormones and surgery to relieve dysphoria. It makes absurd claim that not everyone who menstruates or is a woman, and not only women can get pregnant. So right there, that is not factual. That right there is one reason that book can be removed. It makes a statement that is not true. It is not a fact that men have babies. It is not a fact that men menstruate. So for that reason, that book can be removed. Also because it's propaganda that is biased and doesn't present the other side. And this is a non-fiction book, so it's propaganda. Suggests getting hormones off the internet if a clinic refuses. So if your doctor says you're too young, you can go online and get it. And it also recommends 18 and older dating sites for meeting other transsexuals. And another book I found in your school district was, this is at the high school level again, non-binary. It just includes a non-binary identity. Of course, biological sex is real, but non-binary, pardon my French, is bullshit, okay? Yeah, my French is pretty good. I get a lot of practice. Let's see. The adult minor sexual abuse and boy toy. So this is one that did have a little bit of explicit sexual activities in it. So it does exist in our district still. It's just a matter of finding them. So this is about child sexual abuse by a teacher. That seems to be a common theme. And if you're following the work of, is it Erin Anderson? She's on Twitter and on Facebook. You need to follow that because she's exposing a whole lot of child molesters and sex traffickers in our school system. So it's really disturbing to know that they're reading books like this that normalizes teachers having sex with kids.
What school is that one at?
This one is at Granbury High School.
Okay.
And if you're raise your hand if you are working on the dirty books already. Okay, good to see. So good to see. I'll share this file with you if you'll get with me afterward. So nobody's reinventing the well. I by no means did a thorough investigation. This was just a little bit last night. I will tell you, it looks like just from someone. I do this in districts all over Texas and in other states. I help people in other states too. It looks like somebody has taken the search criteria and changed it in your district. So this is a tactic that is happening everywhere. So you can search by title, author, subject, and keyword. So usually, like a year ago when I would search by keyword or subject, I could search transsexual, transgender, LGBT, LGBTQ, all kinds of, and lots of things would come up. So when I'm searching in districts like this one, not very many things came up. So some things did come up, but that's one of their tactics, to remove those search terms, and they're not tagging the books that way, so that people like you, parents, grandparents, and activists like me who work to protect children can't find it. So I will say someone's doing that. I don't know who, but I'm going to have a look later, and I'm going to find out. Okay, we are going to investigate that person. Okay, we will investigate that person, so get with me afterward, and life's not going to be comfortable for them for long. Okay, the hate you give, this is more propaganda. It's inflammatory racial commentary, excessive and frequent profanity, and inexplicit sexual activities. I do have the book reports for that from a website that I pulled down, and it's on this drive, so I'll give it to you. This is a challenge book in a lot of schools around the country. It's made the most challenged list. The ALA calls it a banned book. It's by no means banned. There hasn't been a banned book since 1964. And when the Department of Homeland Security banned the book, someone was bringing in, I think through TSA or something, but someone was bringing the book, the Anarchist Cookbook. Do you know what that is? So basically, it's a guide on how to commit acts of terrorism. So that's the last book that I'm aware of that was ever banned in the United States. We just don't ban books. What's happening is parents are wanting to remove books that are sexually inappropriate or propaganda promoting an LGBTQ sexual ethic in the schools. Or this racial stuff. And this book is very anti-police. This is in the middle school, and this has a non-binary identity and discusses the ways in which, now this is a fictional story, but it still is pushing the narrative of sex change for a young person and that it's beneficial for that person. And we know now that sex change for kids was onboarded without any systematic reviews. It was onboarded by rapid diffusion, which is with weak evidence, and doctors just continue to just onboard it. And the standards of rigor and necessary just changed right after the time that started in Massachusetts. And in fact, Master Assistance was the first one to expose sex change for children in 2006. Granbury Middle School, Too Bright to See. This is another transgender identity in the book. You can see that this one has won 3 awards. That's one of the ways that they defend having a book in there. If it has awards, that's one of the criteria for getting an adult book sometimes into the library as a young adult. So you'll have an adult theme in a book. But whenever it wins, say, the Stonewall Award, which is an LGBTQ award, then it gets rebranded as a young adult book and put on the shelves in the kids section at the public library or in your school library. Another one, this one is about gender fluidity, and this was in middle school. Okay, so who's behind all of this? I've already mentioned the American Library Association. They are grooming school children all over the United States. In 2019, they held a conference where they teach librarians how to sneak drag queens past parents. They had 2019 is whenever I exposed the Drag Queen Story Hour pedophiles in the Houston Public Library. But not only were there, that story went international. I did the investigation on those drag queens. Not only were those, was that drag queen story time, let's just call it what it is, sex clown story time. Not only were those sex clowns pedophiles, but they are also in that story time pornographers, prostitutes, BDSM, dominatrix for hire, all of which were not just what we're told. We're told that these are homosexual men. No, every single one of those men were transsexuals that had, or women were transsexuals that were involved in those activities I just described. So in 2019, at the conference, they had, after I exposed that drag queen, the first drag queen, no, 2 drag queens with sex offender records in that library, and they didn't even follow their own policy, which is to do a background check. But most libraries don't require a background check for Drag Queen Story Hour. But after all that exposure and having to stop the Drag Queen Story Hour, they still had the audacity to have the library director from Houston Public Library, where I exposed this, be on a panel at the Texas Library Association telling librarians how to have a successful drag queen story hour. And sitting on the panel with her was another drag queen I exposed who was presenting drag queen story hour in elementary schools in Austin and also in the public library and art center in Austin. And that drag queen was a prostitute. So we exposed that and found out that the librarian inviting him to entertain children at the elementary school was a BDSM leather daddy with his pictures of himself in a little leather thong all over the internet in leather daddy competitions and posting pictures of himself and his husband operating the spanking booth at the local leather gear club in Austin. So maybe we've been a little too trusting when people, with people, because it seems like certain people can't leave their kink at home. The guy actually wears, a librarian, wears a medal on his chest, which is a symbol of the leather daddy group that he's in. And then on his arm is a tattoo. This is an elementary school librarian. His arm is a tattoo of a ruler going all the way up to here. How many inches he can get that arm up another man's anus. And in the picture we found online of him, he is doing a symbol like this, which represents a homosexual sex act. That's what we have teaching in our schools. We used to have standards. Drag queens queering elementary school. So 21,460 librarians attend the library conference featuring workshops on drag queens and queering elementary schools. That was 2019 when I first started doing this in Texas. And a huge FU to parents. The Texas Library Association in 2022 had drag queens again. This time they were met with protesters outside. So this last year, I just went this year, and they had Ibram Kendi, who is the anti-racist author, which just basically means he's anti-white. So this year I went to Texas Library Association conference myself. Got one of their little shirts that said freedom to read and went in there and acted like one of them. And I'll tell you a little bit about what I learned in a minute. But before I do, back to 2019, one of the libraries that I investigated for Drag Queen Story Hour had this librarian named Tess Goldwasser, and this was in Maryland, where they had a really perverted, he still works there, library director, and that was hosting all kinds of really perverse stuff for children. And this youth director at the library, Tessa, she wrote this blog post for American Library Association. It's recently been taken offline. Initially, they just took her name off of it because it looked so bad for her. But she instructs how to sneak LGBTQ content past the parents and into story times of the library, how to get more LGBTQ content in your library, how to be a safe space so kids will come talk to you about this stuff, and how to convince the library to eventually have your library director, say you're in a small town like Granbury, to eventually hold a drag queen story hour. So here are some of the things she says. Don't give up. I agree, never give up. You guys, don't give up, don't back down. Those are my other pronouns, never back down. Okay, so sure, you want to eventually get to drag queen story time, but you should start with something simple. Invite LGBTQ community partners. And this is big with American Library Association. One of the first things I learned at the LGBTQ seminar that I went to at the Texas Library conference this year was, the first thing they did, raise your hand if you're thinking about starting a gender sexuality alliance at your school. So these are adults recruiting other adults to start sex clubs in your school. Let's think about it. We have been conned into thinking that certain sexualities need representation among minors in school. Do we have a club for minor girls who are whores? Do we have that? Do we have the sexually active girls club in school? Do we have the kinky boys club that likes to screw lots of girls in school? Then why do we have the Gender Sexuality Alliance in school? No sex clubs in school, period. We don't need adults engaging with kids about sexuality. And by the way, kink, which I'll show evidence of in this presentation. So, reach out to groups like your local PFLAG chapter or local schools LGBT student groups. So this is adults reaching out for kids interested in sex, different types of sex. Defend your LGBT items in your collection, but first, be ready to listen to the complaint. Yeah. So in other words, just be a poser. Yeah, that's a good word for it. So anyway, so be a walking, talking safe place. So she advises librarians to wear a safe space button. So basically wear your groomer signal out there. Wear a rainbow colored lanyard or bracelet to indicate that you're someone, a safe person for them to turn to in a time of need. So here's the idea. You can't talk to your parents because your parents are old-fashioned and bigoted and Christian, and they're a bunch of haters. Their values are outdated, so go talk to the librarian because they just know better than your parents. This is so groomery and so awful and predatory. She should have been fired, but she was promoted. That's the bad news. So they do reach out to those organizations like GLSEN, and in Texas, they have librarians have reached out to Gay Lesbian Sex Education Network, which is the group that runs GSA, which is Gender Sex Alliance. And so, as a result, 75,000 students, this is just in 2022, had access to Rainbow Library, which is a collection of LGBTQ books, kind of like the ones that I just showed you at the beginning of this presentation. 140 schools in Texas have a Rainbow Library by the end of 2022. How much worse is that now? Now that we've been having these public book wars, it's worse because one of the in a small town that I protested their pride thing, Dow Chemical, because they want to keep their Human Rights Campaign score and their ESG score high, they actually funded a new LGBTQ pride organization in Brazoria County. And then those homosexuals that run that went and bought the Rainbow Library books and inserted them in a community that never wanted them. Never sought those out. So you have corporations in your community, by the way, who are getting tax breaks. They get for 10 years, they petition your local government. So you need to go to your local government, and if there is a big company in here that's getting a tax rebate because they're going to bring so many jobs, you go and say, I don't want you to give them another tax abatement. No more tax abatements for agents of change in our community, period.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
And that's done at the local level, and we need to address it at the state level as well, but that can be addressed locally. And about GLSEN and the Gender Sexuality Alliance used to be called Gay Sexuality Alliance or Gay Straight Alliance. They realized that there's no straight people actually going to that. That's what my son told me when he was in high school. So he was like, they make this announcement to invite everyone to Gay Straight Club. He goes, no straight people go to that. So, but it's unabashed support for children engaging in homosexuality and cross-dressing, anonymous restroom sex, pickups on the internet, frequent porn viewing, and sex between adults and young teens. And several years ago, Masters of Sex busted the GLSEN, which was founded by Kevin Jennings. You might remember he was Obama's Safe Schools Czar. Does that make you feel safe about your schools? Me either. So we busted GLSEN and Fistgate. Here's the description of what they were telling kids to get. They're telling kids about fisting, forcing one's entire hand into another person's rectum or vagina, often gets a bad rap. It's an experience of letting somebody into your body that you want to be that close and intimate with, and to put you into an exploratory mode. So they're telling kids, we don't want these people anywhere near children. And so here's the kit they were handing out at their conference to children. And children were handing these out to other children. This was being handed out by a 14-year-old girl. So, and it also has like an oral sex dam thing. It's for oral sex, and then some condoms there. And I guess the bracelet's for fun. I hope it could be for something else. I didn't want to think about it. So it's a blatant indoctrination, sexual enticement, radical activist training, even soliciting the opinions of minors for sketchy school climate surveys with no parental permission, and that was involving 6th graders. So they use this window dressing rhetoric about inclusivity and diversity. There's bullying going on that they're concerned about, and oppression and harassment. The advocacy of actual homosexual sex, sometimes implicit, sometimes very explicit, and even for young kids. They support gender change, even for elementary age children. And whenever kids, it's all okay whenever a kid is ready for it. It's foolish child empowerment with no parental consent. I will probably touch on this later, but since it's on the tip of my mind. All of this is because presumably you're a bunch of bigots. Your community is bigoted. You're a bunch of homophobes. You're old-fashioned. You're racist. And you need re-education, starting with your kids, who will re-educate you or alienate you. You'll be alienated from them if you don't believe what they now believe because they've been indoctrinated in school. Why? Get your federal TEA report card off the internet. It'll show you, and if you don't know how to do this, get in touch with me. It'll show you that how many incidents of sexual harassment or harassment and bullying based on sexual orientation or gender identity or race are taking place in your school district. You can also look this information up with the FBI for your whole community, like by count. I think it's by county. So do that, look at it, and see how many there are. And guess how many I've found in most districts?
What?
0, a big fat goose egg. Okay. And when I look by county, it's very few. And this is going by like a period of 10 years when you're looking at counties. So there's really no need for all this re-education. Somebody came into your community and decided you're bigots and need a re-education because you're not safe for your own children. So make sure your library has a policy. That's the first thing that American Library Association tells librarians. Why do they say that? Because they know that policy works to keep every dirty piece of material in the library. That policy was not written locally. It is not written for you, the parent. It was not written for your children. It is written to protect the books, not the children. And it is, if we looked at your policy, I guarantee, I didn't look at it, I should have, but every district I've looked at, the policy is pulled directly out of the ALA Office of Intellectual Freedom handbook or manual, which I have a copy. So we can compare yours. We'll get together hopefully soon, maybe this week, and I will send you a copy of what is in the manual, and you can compare it to yours because it's going to be very similar. In fact, is your district part of TASB?
Yes.
Okay, so TASB supplies these things, and guess where they got it from? The ALA, exactly. So opposing challenges, that's part of the policy. It's all baked in there, that how you'll handle challenges. If you've done a challenge in your district, you know that the questions that they ask about the books are like, does it have any artistic value? Does it have any educational value? Does it present an idea or fill a gap? It's all these questions, so it's like, yes, yes, yes. The conclusion is to keep the book. That's the conclusion. If anybody is removing a book, it happens sometimes through this process, but usually it doesn't. That's because the people had a conscience and wanted to do so. They knew it was sexually inappropriate. Is the book sexually inappropriate? That's not even one of the questions. Is the book propaganda? That's not one of the questions. But those are reasons to remove them. And legally, you can do that without a challenge. Or if you do have a legal challenge, you can win because there's precedence for that. The ALA likes parents and school boards to think that you will lose if you go to court. That's not true. Here's how you lose. If you say, this book is disgusting. I don't want homosexuality discussed at all with my kids. So you cannot win if you're on the school board and you make the argument that this is just an idea I don't like. Okay, it has to be that it's inappropriate or it's propaganda. So,
Or if it's pornography.
Sexually explicit, age appropriate. So those are reasons that the American Library Association, the librarians remove books all the time. By the way, they remove most of the books. So what the ALA advises, and Texas Library Association leader, Office of Intellectual Freedom President Dorcas Hand actually advises that you will reframe the argument. This is what your librarians who are defending this will do. Reframe the argument from sexually inappropriate to diversity and inclusion. They report book challenges and they villainize parents and they pressure publishers to continue to pump this stuff into your schools. The latest tactics of the ALA include delisting books that parents might object to. So they take it off the database, but they're still in the school. And they actually are putting hard copy that kids can look through, but you won't see them, I won't see them, but here you go. These are the books that are challenged. These are the LGBTQ books. This is the erotica. So kids are still able to get it. Or they give them another database to access with a password that you don't have. They were caught red-handed saying this just recently. They also, Texas Library Association, Office of Intellectual Freedom President, advised librarians on how to avoid the Freedom of Information Act request process in Texas. You can request their private emails and their private text messages and cell phone records. So that is available under FOIA in Texas. So the advice she was giving them to illegally go around FOIA was incorrect. In fact, when we did a FOIA request on about the drag queen stuff in Austin ISD with the leather daddy guy, we found he was talking about me. Pretty interesting. I got his text message where he's saying, "Oh, Tracy Shannon is going to be so upset when she finds out we had drag queen story hour." And I was upset. Yes, congratulations. But we got a story about him that went viral internationally about what a pervert he is. So I guess he was upset too. And embarrassed. But we also found that he was giving advice to the prostitute drag queen on how to get around the background check because of his history for an offense. So also the librarians were coached by in a recent training session to use dummy covers. So when a kid checks out a book that maybe his parents wouldn't approve of, they won't know that that's what it is. So this is just about Dorcas Hand. This is a presentation in which she describes removing books, and also she says that she's removed books because they were sexually inappropriate. So yes, you can do that. So she even admits it. And this is the one where she talks about the going around a FOIA request, because we don't want what they don't want you to find out is which librarians are reporting you to the ACLU and the OIF, so you can have a big battle in your community and threats of lawsuits. We don't need these activist librarians in our schools, period. We need librarians that are responsive to their community. The president of the American Library Association, you probably know, is an openly lesbian Marxist. So, there's probably no agenda there at all. In fact, that last slide said transforming Texas. So, yeah. And if Google this when you have time, American Library Association Agents of Change or Change Agents. There's a lot of articles on that where they admit that's what they're doing. So here's the proof of what they're doing. You can watch this.
Don't label the books with identity-based subject headings, for example, LGBTQIA+, or gays fiction. Aside from being bad practice, it makes it too easy for parents or community members to find those kinds of books. We know is those books that are LGBTQ and about race issues, and so don't make it necessarily easy for those groups to find, but make it easy for those who want the books, right? So the examples here are to create ways for students to find these books by offering a physical list they can look at while they're in the library. There is a suggestion of, I'm sure all of you have seen those plastic binders that in back in the day was like the Rolodex, right? Or like the phone book with the plastic pages, so you can put display or book lists in those plastic sleeves, and then folks can come and flip through those. So that's one way you can put like any new LGBTQIA themed books that you might have can be on display that way. Also build digital collections or reading lists that can be accessed via, maybe a username and password for just your patrons or just your students.
Okay, groomer. Yeah, so there they are. In their own words, and that was in the last few weeks. That was a librarian. I forget where she was from, but she was a presenter for the American Library Association 2.0 conference that just happened. Libraries 2.0.
So sometime in your presentation, can you talk about the legislation that was passed in Austin this year? And
Yeah, at the end we'll have questions about that, and
Okay.
It is a helpful tool, but it's not everything. I mean, that's the short summary of that, but
Don't label.
I mean, okay. So here's some of the books that they're removing from libraries. So Brave books by Kirk Cameron, conservative Christian books, ex-gay positive or authored books, Heroes of Liberty, Irreversible Damage by Abigail Schreier, which is about the transgender stuff. Johnny the Walrus by Matt Walsh. In fact, on madmamabear.com, that's my website, you can find where I wrote about the librarians actively. I found them talking in a chat on Facebook about throwing his book in the trash so it wouldn't be on the shelves. So we are Nazis and book banners, but they're preventing conservative books from going on the shelves and Christian books from going on the shelves and talking about throwing them away, but we're the Nazis and the fascists and the book burners. Okay, got it. Maybe they're Nazis. So Texas Library Association, this is a slide that was at one of the presentations I saw, asking the librarians, have you removed there was a survey about have librarians removed potentially problematic books from library shelves in the last 2 years. And the survey found that librarians had done this. So due to public scrutiny, so like all of us complaining about a dirty book, that happened about 12% of the time. At the direction of an administrator, that was 13% of the time. But 42% of the time, librarians decide at their own discretion to remove books. Are they Nazis? God, they must be fascist, because that's what I'm called for, suggesting that we remove a book. So the response to Brave Books by Kirk Cameron, their new strategy, and there's a video of this, just to keep it brief, I didn't include it, but they say, go book your calendar out. So they know that he's having these events sometime in August, certain weekends in August, and so they advise librarians to create programming to fill their community rooms to try to prevent him from having these events. And that is happening even in Texas. Another strategy they use is say that security costs are going to be really high because of the event, and they blame conservatives for that, when really a lot of times they're reaching out to Antifa in their own community, and they're causing the increased need for security. And they're promoting and advertising and talking to media and pitching this as some kind of homophobic, bigoted event when it's not. So the American Library Association calls us parents book banners. This is an article written by me by actually a guy who is like He's a journalist, but he's like a embedded Antifa journalist. And everybody, all the activists know this guy is friendly with Antifa. And he wrote about me that I'm a transphobic activist. I don't even know what that word means anymore, but I'm definitely going to have it printed on a shirt so that I can wear around. And so, actually, they call me so many names. I've had to order a dress with all the names on it that they call me because it just wouldn't fit on a shirt. So, and in this one, they imply that I'm burning books when all I was suggesting is donating books. I usually bring books to donate that I've had donated to me or through fundraising I've been able to buy that present the other side of the conversation on transgenderism for children, and they're age-appropriate books. By local authors, and I'm out. I mean, so people are doing a good job of getting those around the state. So I'm out right now, so I didn't bring those. The challenge process. This is what librarians think of your challenge. At a recent event, they had pins like this they were giving away. It said, librarians are tougher than your challenge. So they know that the challenge process is rigged in their favor. So it's designed to keep the books. The forms are ALA/OLF manual copies. Master's Assistants does not recommend this process. I do it. I've done it with a lot of books, but the results are usually, at the very best, usually that they're marked mature content. This isn't a good solution. They will put the book behind the librarian's desk, but why isn't this a good solution? They're still going to advertise banned books in the library, so the kids know to go ask the librarian for the books that are marked mature content. Maybe you'll get a notice, and so you'll know that your kid is checking out something mature, but most of us think our kids are mature, and the reviews that they give you online for these books don't really tell the whole story about what's inside the cover. It's really true you cannot judge a book by its cover. That's why we need to do these book reports in the reviews. Reframing challenge books as diverse and inclusive is one of their dirty tricks. The selection and challenge policy is another part of their dirty tricks. And the selection process, we talked about the challenge policy. So selection process, they have their approved list of book review companies. And so if you want to donate a book and those companies haven't done a review of it, and it hasn't won certain awards, then your book isn't getting in there. So, for example, the books that the local author gives me, they're children's books about loving yourself the way you were born, for children, or Master's Assistant's book on homosexuality, the health hazards of homosexuality. That's a real banned book. They won't even sell it on Amazon. So I wouldn't suggest that for a school, however, but a public library maybe, because it's too mature. The content is too mature. The claim that librarians are highly trained experts that know how to select age-appropriate books, while also saying librarians aren't lawyers and cannot determine what porn and obscenity is. So that's one of their tactics. I already talked about the rest of that. So those links there for whoever is working this, you need these links because there's the link to Banned Books Week. Yeah. They lead officials to think that you can't remove books, but you can remove them. So there's some information on that there. And I do recommend Safe Libraries Blogspot for information. In fact, he is going to announce Monday that he's opening a new library association, that Safe Libraries. So misguided school boards follow ALA diktat. The boards routinely, at the advice of Texas Association of School Lawyers and Texas Association of School Boards and ALA, follow ALA diktat and use all their policies. They repeat that they cannot remove books unless they are obscene. So the problem with that definition is that it includes in the Texas code anyway that and has no redeeming, educational, artistic, or literary value. Well, even a porn flick is going to have some artistic redeeming value, like maybe like the first 1 minute. So this is something you can never really meet. So just because they put the obscenity code in there in your policy, that does not help you. We need something better than that. And I will have model policy for you this week that came from some lawyers. I forgot the group, but it's a known group that Massachusetts was working with recently, and they helped put one out for the public just last week. So I will share that with people who are working this. So we need to stay in touch this week. And just an example of how persistence pays off, McKinney ISD on the left, when they first started fighting, the school board came out and said, our policy works. They put a press release out. 1 year later of this whole showing up to school boards thing, the McKinney ISD library changes its library review process. So that was progress. Not that it was perfect, because we really didn't have a perfect policy suggestions at that time yet.
It's a start, though.
It's a start, and it was a really one of the first good things that I saw in Texas on this subject, besides just getting them removed, which is great. So your steps are to investigate, alert your school board and superintendent, do so quietly without making a whole bunch of noise at first. And when they don't get it, then it's time to go public and expose it. And I usually, as a strategy, do the sexually explicit books first. It's less controversial, especially if it's at the time of a political race going on, because then you don't want to activate those people who are very radical but not involved in your community. Like where I live, because it's more populous in a suburb of Houston, if I went with the CRT books right away, there's a whole south side of my district that would just be like, these racists are trying to remove books about Black history, which is not true. I love Black history. You can't tell by looking at me, my grandma's Black, half my family's Black. I'm white as frozen chicken, but I love Black history. So nobody's trying to remove Black history from the schools, but that's what they'll say. And so that's why I go in that order, and plus you get a little experience with it too. And then secondly, LGBTQ, because it's propaganda. So publicity, news, opinion writing in the opinion page, taking out an ad, showing examples on social media, doing an email campaign, and flyers and cards. And what we used was a QR code where parents could scan that on a card or in an ad we put out. So when they scanned that, they could access a Google Drive where they could see all the examples of the books that we found in the district. Well, not all, but a lot of them, the ones we complained about. And draft model policy, which I'll give you if you're working with me. Keep good records of challenged books, spreadsheet, saying where each book is if it's being challenged. Keep everything, every email correspondence in a separate email with your school district. Keep a good calendar, because if you miss one meeting, that complaint can be dropped. So keep a file folder or Google Drive for all your book reports so that you can share them with people. And have a dedicated social media handle on all the different social media. And don't choose something boring like Concerned Parents of Granbury. Do something exciting like Dirty Books of Granbury ISD or Dirty Book Investigators, because that's so much more fun to read about in the newspaper, and it really triggers the left. So. Before you start, document as many titles as you can. Include the date that you found it, a picture of where you found it, and the date in the database. Because the cover your ass operation will start immediately as soon as you start making noise, as you very well know. They will remove the books from the database, they will remove the tags, title, author, and subject, and they will fight you on FOIA requests. So what is needed now at this point where we're at is an audit, and we need to get our state legislators to mandate that we have audits of what's in our school libraries because of what we saw in that video earlier. So call a press conference and have a few members of True Texas Project or Master Assistants show up and help you. Be ready to make a solid argument that the opposition cannot take down. Be professional, firm, and not irate. So the argument is that we have a reasonable expectation that our kids will not be sexually indoctrinated or exposed to sexually explicit material while they're in school. We do not have a choice, most of us, but to put our kids in public school, because maybe you all work, or maybe you can't afford a private school. So therefore, it's not like taking your kid to the public library. It's a little different. They shouldn't have this smut there either. But it's a little different because you have to send your kids to school. Just a second on questions, because we got like 12 more slides. Be professional, not irate. Here's me being professional and not irate. Books so filthy the media cannot even cover them. So that clip was run on a program, and they could only run it one time because they would be fined if they continued to do so because of the language. So most teachers would not read that out loud in the classroom, I would hope. If I read that in the place where I used to work, I would have been fired for sexual harassment. The school board limited our time because we were reading those books out loud because they didn't like having it read at the school board meeting. So, students are reading these books out loud at school when they check them out or in the libraries. One parent contacted me and said the first time her daughter heard any of this kind of stuff and some of these types of sex acts was in school when a kid was reading it from one of these books. Because I don't know about you, but I was like almost 40 before I heard about some of these crazy, disgusting, abusive sex acts. I mean, I think I just learned like something new the other day, and I'm 50. So after exposing those few books, hundreds of dirty books were removed from our school libraries. And since then, thousands have been removed. If I go and look online for books that I know or were there, they're gone. So that's because they started weeding them. Here's the question, were they really removed from I did see some carts of books removed. I did get photographic evidence from an insider, but were all those titles removed that I've been told were removed? Because they're not really telling the public that. There's a reason they're not telling the public. It's because of the lawsuits that will come from ACLU and OIF. But we need to have an audit of those books. I'm going to take questions in about 8 more slides. Safe libraries, model policy. Take a screenshot of that if you want. That's a good suggestion. My only change to that I would just put a period right after any minor. Because I don't think that stuff belongs in schools, period. Fight dirty tips. Don't worry about upsetting your friends, neighbors, and political associates or professional connections, because if you're worried about that, you might as well admit defeat now. Nobody that's defending these dirty books in the schools is worried about what you think of them. Learn to defend your position that sexually explicit books, propaganda, and dishonest materials are harmful to children and undermine parental authority. The only time to be nice is when you first alert the leadership in your district. After that, it's time to fight dirty. The only time, and then the report card for the TEA I did already talk about. And I will supply to you, if you get in touch with me, some opt-out forms before school starts. Because you need to opt your kid out of the portal for the public library. Because they're not under the House Bill 900 requirement. And most of these dirty book battles are taking place in schools, not in the public library. So a lot of the dirty books are still there. So you don't want them to be accessing the electronic stuff either from the library. And I know it's only half the battle, but it doesn't matter that your kids can access this stuff online. Your school district should not be supplying it in the school, period. Check with us for there's a letter that I'm working on right now, should be available on Monday. Check back with me because we're going to have a letter that you can give your school board, get people to sign in your community, and we will, and it basically is telling them to put it on the agenda to dump the ALA and why, and not to reimburse fees for the ALA or their conference dues and conference fees